New report out from the World Economic Forum is showing that while there is optimism over easing pricing pressures and strong global commerce, long-term growth and stability facing significant risks from elevated debt levels and political polarization. Joining us now to discuss those findings, we want to bring in Saadia Zahidi, Managing Director of the World Economic Forum. And Saadia, it's great to have you here on Yahoo Finance with us. So talk to us about what you found in this survey. You took a survey of leading chief economists. It looks like there were some reasons to be optimistic, but like we just said, the warnings on debt and political polarization seem to be challenges here that could constrain some of that future growth.
Yeah, thank you for having me. What we find essentially is that a large set of the chief economists, larger than before, are tentatively pointing towards the long-awaited soft landing. They're basically saying about 54% are saying things will look relatively stable, we'll have this kind of tepid growth that we've been having. And 37% are saying it could get a little bit worse. And then there's 9% that think that things could be getting better. So overall, the majority are finding a positive outlook. Now, things are very optimistic in the United States. Over 8 out of 10 of the chief economists that we surveyed are expecting either strong or moderate growth. When it comes to Europe, it's almost the reverse. Most are expecting very weak growth. And when in China, it's about 6 out of 10 are expecting moderate growth, 4 out of 10 are expecting much weaker growth. So across those 3 core economic areas, a mixed picture, but definitely a positive outlook for the US. And then, of course, you mentioned, elections and the geopolitical outlook. So 8 out of 10 chief economists, regardless of where they are based in the world and which sector they are in, are of course expecting the outcomes of the US elections to have a massive impact on all of these predictions. And then, of course, we're going to see what things look like in January with the next quarterly outlook.
That was going to be my exact next question, Saadia, about the potential impact of the oncoming election. And that could certainly impact the debt levels in the United States. And you talk about the global concerns about rising debt. What stood out to you just in terms of the impact of rising debt? Can you kind of operationalize that for folks? Why is that such a worry?
Yeah, so there's definitely more concern about emerging markets and developing economies than there is about advanced regions like the United States or like Europe. There's definitely still a lot more optimism, even with relatively high inflated debt levels. There's much more concern when it comes to developing economies, and then the risk of contagion that may create across other emerging markets as well. There's about 3.3 billion people that live in economies where the debt servicing levels are actually higher than what those economies are spending on, for example, on health and in education. Now, that's particularly a developing economy problem. And what that then means is that some of that social spending, there's a lot of trade-offs compared to servicing some of that debt. So overall, there is a fiscal squeeze. And I think overall there's also a pattern. When it comes to election years, spending by governments tends to be higher, and then post-elections there tends to be a reckoning where then some of that spending needs to be brought under control. But the economic nationalism mood in most advanced and emerging markets will make that very difficult for governments after this bumper election year in 2024.
And Saadia, as we try to figure out, I guess, ultimately what this means just in terms of the likely catalyst here for the global economy going forward, a lot of that has to do with maybe how some of these issues are addressed. So can you give us any insight into, I guess, the ways to best address some of these issues and maybe what that resolution then looks like?
Yeah, so we've had a really interesting picture from the chief economists this year. One would think that the traditional wisdom is that most chief economists across most sectors and regions would tell you, focus on growth, focus on top line growth, and everything else is secondary. we're actually hearing something very different. 2/3 of them are saying, yes, focus on growth, but 2/3 are also saying that it's important to look at other targets like sustainability, like equity, like national security. And so you essentially have a set of top economists in the world that are saying, yes, growth matters, but the quality of that growth also matters. And if we address some of those fundamentals, if we invest more in basic, public infrastructure, if we invest more in education or in healthcare, or if we invest more in some greener technologies, that is going to be, in the long term, better for coming out of this sort of tepid growth trap that we're currently in.
All right, Saadia Zahidi, Managing Director at the World Economic Forum. We got to leave it there. Thank you so much, though, for joining us.
Thank you.